All right, folks, I just want to apologize. This is the missing slides from the Enochian calendar explained, maybe part 2. It was really strange because when I played it to check it on PowerPoint, obviously the program which I used for it, everything played out just fine and normal. However, so I guess something was transpired in the upload, or maybe the transfer to MP4 or whatever it was that caused like a skip over of the slides for some strange reason. So I apologize for the missing slides, and hopefully this will help clear up some of the issues that might have been missed in the Enochian calendar explained, maybe part 2. And where it kind of dropped the first time was the man-made Gregorian Slide. Cue the dance music. Let's watch and see. Thank you, Pope Gregory. Okay, so our 10 days too soon, the moon coming in, huh? Well, Pope Gregory, in his infinite wisdom to correct the 1 day every 128 years for the total of 10 over the hundreds and hundreds of centuries, did not correct that slide of that 1 day over centuries and centuries, 128 years, hundreds of centuries. What he did do, however, is he created the 10-day slide. And I'm about to show you how and why. Because nobody decided to listen to Enoch at any point in time with the ordained number of days per month. January has 31 currently. Remember, it's supposed to have 30. February has 28, supposed to have 30, March 31, so forth. Because of that, when we think it's January 31st, as I was saying, actually, no, it's ordained in the universe that that's the first day of whatever month. That's provided, obviously, we got back on beginning months on the new moons type of thing, okay? So with each month that is given the incorrect number of days, we end up slishing and sliding around. And don't forget, so since we don't have, since your days are off with the, even the months that have the 30s or the 31s, the 4 months that are correct-ish, if you watch throughout the year, it's still slishing and sliding because the further you get in the year with the wrong number of days prior to it, you're pushing the first of the beginning of that month, the true month, further and further and further into the calendar, so to say. So, okay, we're going to look at month 1. Now, you're going to notice that this calendar formatting is slightly different than what you saw on the part 2. This is from the missing slides, like I said. But look at your month 1. Look, we're going to pay attention to the red circles all over this. All right. So, as I said, the 30th or the 29th or the 30th every month is when the sun sets with the moon. That determines the end of your lunar count for that month. It'll only ever fall on the 29th or the 30th of the Creator's calendar. Correlating between the two, okay, if you look down in the first month in the lower corner there, and then in the box above it to the right, you have a 30-day count, okay? So if you correlate it with the Gregorian calendar. Now, moving on to month 2 for the Gregorian calendar, now the new moon, according to the Gregorian calendar, with their 29 days and with their wrong number of months, that has slidden to the block for the 29th. Moving over to month 3. Oh, look, now we're at the 28th. Month 4, we're at the 27th. Month 5, we're at the 26th. By month 6, oh, we're at the 25th. Month 7, we've skipped over the 24th. We've now dropped 2 days. We've got the 23rd. Month 8, again the 23rd. So sometimes you have no slide, sometimes you have a 1 day, sometimes you have a 2-day slide. Skipping down to the 9th month, again on the 23rd. Here we go to the 10th month. Now we're into the 21st. and then the 21st, and then the 21st. All right? So right there, you can see how the moon comes in, supposedly comes in 10 days too soon every single year. It doesn't come in 10 days too soon every single year because it's only got 354 days in it. We've established the moon's periods are the same periods as the sun, 30 days. The 354 simply means out of 364 days, you will only get 354 lunar lit nights. Those 10 additional or missing nights, or whatever you want to call them, are not missing nights in all actuality. They're just dark nights. Okay? Bring your flashlight, light a candle, turn on the outside lights, whatever you got to do. They still have, the moon still has 364 days, just as the sun does. Okay? With the Gregorian Slide, the wrong days attributed to the wrong months, attributed to the blah, 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 all the good wrong stuff, Pope Gregory created our current 10-day slide every single year. So we not only do we have the claim that the moon comes in 10 days too soon, because apparently, at some out of everything that the Most High made, somehow he got the moon wrong. I don't think so. Don't get me wrong. Yes, at a future time, the moon is supposed to do some really strange things that we're not accustomed to seeing. However, I don't think we've quite gotten to that point yet. I think we're getting there because we're having a lot more, quote unquote, blood moons than we used to, type of thing. But all right, so this is your 10-day too soon, the moon coming in 10 days too soon. Okay. This is the lie perpetuated by the Vatican, by Pope Gregory. This is what Jubilees is talking about when it says, there will be men who make observations of the moon and how it comes in 10 days too soon. Because at the time of their observing these moons coming in, they did not have the correct number of days allotted to the correct months. Does that make sense? Okay, another side note, sorry. A very often tiny, maybe tiny, I don't know, but obviously huge, overlooked verse. This would be the very first 5 verses in Genesis. Listen to this. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Ruach Elohim moved upon the face of the waters, and Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Elohim saw that the light was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So what is that verse saying? He divided the day from the night. Divided. There's 2 days. There's 2 time periods, a day and night. You divide that by 2, meaning equal parts. Meaning that at that moment in time, there were equal parts day and equal parts night. Meaning, on the first day of creation, he created the spring equinox by dividing the day and the night. Mind blown yet again. You are amazing, Most High. The first day of creation was an equinox, the spring equinox. Mind blown. Let me show you. Are you ready for more patterns? It gets deep. Okay, now here's a better close-up version of what the calendar should look like. Remember now, time is cyclical. It just keeps going and going and going. Okay, so meaning, I have seen people make, biblical calendars, where they have the first for the first day of creation overhanging to the rest of the calendar. Like they have like the nighttime portion, what they would consider evening, nighttime, overhanging to where, say, the first day of creation is. Wrong, incorrect, all right? It's cyclical. It didn't just have a pinpoint start and then start a cycle. It was already intertwined, so to say, into the cycle, meaning the first day of creation, day 1, if you can picture the 12th month above this, where 31 ends and 1 begins in pseudo Saturday, okay? the evening of the 31st and the beginning of the 1st. Okay, evening 31st, equal day, equal night. There was your spring equinox, bammo, right there. So it flows right into the 1st. It doesn't overhang the 1st to show some obscure moment in time where it just began. It's intertwined in a cyclical, going round and round and round, if that makes sense. All right. Now with that, more mind-blowing, more patterns. Take a look at month 1 now, and let's see what it looks like when you actually do out your calendars, or when the creator's calendar is actually done out, I should say. Okay. Now, you have in the first block at the very top, darkest ribbon, you can see day 1. That is the daylight portion. All right, the nighttime portion of day 1 happened up beside 31 in the top right-hand corner, if you can picture the month 12 above it. That's when the nighttime portion of 1 happened. That's where other individuals are getting confused when it comes to trying to count and trying to figure it out. You've got to realize that the nighttime portion of day 1 started up in the 31st day, beside the 31st day, pseudo-Saturday, as after the darkness of the 31st, day and night and day were divided. They were made equal, all right? So, but on the calendar you can see, so day 1, all right, is the left-hand portion, the day, the right-hand portion of the block is the night. And then you look right below that and you're like, hey, crazy lady, there's some weird looking stuff on here. Yeah, there is some weird looking stuff on here. Like I said, we are not in the correct day of the week. We are not practicing Sabbath on the 7th day. Not today. Are we practicing it every 7 days? Yes, but we're not practicing it on his appointed 7th day. Now, you can actually search, read books from historical records of Romans or of, even Jewish, scholars and historians at that time. The Romans even admit that the Jews were practicing their Shabbat on the Romans' Saturn's day. However, I do believe that we misinterpreted or misassigned, or purposely misassigned, where Saturn's day truly fell for the Romans, because Saturn's day, Saturday is not Saturn's day. Wednesday, Saturn's day was assigned to Wednesday. So, you know how Yeshua died on a Wednesday and everyone says, okay, yeah, he died on a Wednesday, so it had to be the Wednesday, Wednesday the 12th is when, Passover had to have happened in the year of his crucifixion, 31 AD. Wrong. Because at the time of Yeshua, he didn't he didn't argue about the calendar and when Shabbat was. Because at the time, Shabbat was still every 7 days, okay? Now, previously I said I think the children lost, the concept of the calendar back in when they were first in bondage. However, they're still completely capable of counting 7777 no matter what calendar they're on. So that's what I meant, behind closed doors for some time. They may not have, they could still recognize when the Sabbath was by simply counting 7 days from the last Sabbath. So they could still secretly practice their Sabbath on the 7th day for generations, okay? I just think that the whole issue of, 354 days versus 364 days and correctly calculating the new moons, and when, that got messed up, along with, obviously, somebody misinterpreting what day Saturn's day actually was, okay? So yes, when the Bible says, or when, scholars say that he was crucified on a Wednesday, he was crucified on a Shabbat, on a normal 7-day Shabbat, the 14th, which was also the Passover, okay? You'll notice as we start going through these slides that the high holy days, I will call them, because unleavened bread comes after Shabbat, comes after the 14th, comes after Passover. All right. Well, and it's supposed to run through the 21st. The 21st is supposed to be another high holy day. However, the 21st is also, wow, look at that. It's also a 7-day Sabbath. So everybody that's got, they're doing their weekly Sabbaths on Saturday, and that, and then the Gregorian calendar's rolling around, and they're like, oh, this year, the 14th of, of the first month falls on, I don't know, April 23rd, which is technically, the 17th day of the Creator's calendar. And then it runs through, then you got Passover the 17th and unleavened bread the 18th, and then you got to run it the 7 days. So then you end up having, your normal weekly Shabbat, your normal 7-day Saturdays, and then you end up having a stretch of an entire week stretch, a couple of times a year, where the special other, Moedim, appointed times and feasts, fall, which don't coincide whatsoever with what in society, if that makes sense. However, if you look at the Creator's calendar, they actually do coincide 100%. So, Yeshua was crucified on the 14th, on a Wednesday. The 7th day of the week, the true 7th day for the Creator, is a Wednesday, not a Saturday. So, like I was saying, yeah, we're all messed up everywhere. I don't know how many people are going to well, it's hard enough for some people to get off Friday evenings and Saturdays, as it is. Satan just made it that much more harder for you by making us assume that Saturday is an actual Saturday, when in fact, universally, Saturday is a Wednesday. And what's everybody doing during a Wednesday? They're working. It's right smack dab in the middle of the work week, Tuesday evening at nightfall to Wednesday, evening at nightfall. That is when the true 7th-day Sabbath occurs. So yes, Yeshua was crucified on Wednesday. Yes, he rose from the grave on the 17th. However, the 17th was a Saturday, not a Sunday. And yes, she was able to go purchase those oils after the 14th and the 15th, because now it's the morning of the 16th. Okay, the whole festival, the whole time, it runs till the 21st. But like I said, after that first day and after the last, and before the last day, the time in between, the days in between, they can actually do other things. There are things that they can do. They're not forbidden from purchasing. They just can't do servile work. You can't have your manservants and maidservants and all that stuff, and your family and anyone in your gates out there, taking care of your fields, for the community and such thing. You can take care of it enough to feed yourself and your family type, but you're not supposed to go out there and start, reaping the fields at that time and blah 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 So there's a difference between no work and no servile work. Don't forget that. All right, so mind blown there. So your second month, again, day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way through. Your new moon comes in on the 1st. It never falls on a 7th-day Sabbath. Your full moon never falls on a 7th-day Sabbath. Now, some people are like, oh, well, how could this be? Because we had the 14th is Passover and the 15th is, unleavened bread. And we're told that, the children exited Egypt on the 15th and it was a full moon. Well, yeah, because the 15th is a full moon, because the 14th fell the day before it. So they had, and it cut, the destroyer came in at midnight on the 14th. It's still dark. It's still the 14th because the sun hasn't set again for the 15th, if that makes sense. So here's what month 2 looks like in the calendar. And here you have month 3. Well, we've just now ended our spring quarter. All right. Take a little look. And month 4. Okay, granted, the actual calendar itself, doesn't have the big red circle-y dots on it. However, it does have the highlighted spots for them to show you the Gregorian Slide 10 days every single year. All right. So, like I said, reading this calendar, let's look at month 4. Let's look at the 11th and 12th of July, the small black numbers right below the ordained days per the Creator. All right. How are you going to calculate off of this calendar? There's a lot of dates. Well, you find where it is. It is still located in the Thursday block, as we think of a Thursday. However, it's actually a Monday and a Tuesday. All right, according to the Creator, it is the 5th day and the 6th day of the week. So what you're going to do, find that little black number, look right below it. You see 0708 July. Oh, sorry, my bad. Don't do that. Find the little black number. Then find the correlating number in red. Boop. You're going down all the way down to the 9th and the 10th day of the Creator's calendar. Okay. So as you can see there, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 4-day difference in this month as according to, obviously there's more because they rubber stamp 29 days and they have an incorrect number of months. But according to the Navy chart and the time that the sun and moon set and the count, okay, according to that much, there was a 4-day difference in where those days are. All right. So that's how you're going to use it. Look for your normal, what you think day it is according to the Gregorian calendar. Find the correlating red underneath it, and the red numbers and the red dates are part Gregorian / part Creators in a way, because they do still attribute the 11-12 July type of thing. However, they are based off of when the equinox occurred. The solstice. When the solstice occurred in July on quote unquote Tuesday, the 2nd of July, and the red numbers actually have the correct number of days per month. So locate the little black Julian date, find the corresponding red more correct Julian date, I suppose you'd call it, and then look in the same block right above it to the big Creator's date, and that is the day of the actual universe, so to say. Okay. And here you have a sneak peek at month 5 on a bigger scale. Like I said, the far left-hand corner in all these blocks, it tells you what week we're in, week 5, but now we're into, summer. So it's from the beginning of the weeks of months of the year, we're actually in week 18, week 5 and week 18. The 5th week of, summer, but the 18th week of the year, okay? And, scrolling all the way to the right, you can see under 7th day, first day, the 126, 133, 140, that's, like I said, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. I didn't put all the little numbers in between because my blocks weren't that big and it created issues type of thing. So, yeah, there's a sneak peek at 5. And a sneak peek at 6, okay? Like I said, or not me, but like Enoch says, at 177 days, at 26 weeks and 2 days, all right, that is when the moon makes the change between, gates 6 and 1, 6 and 4, and 4 and 1, okay? There's this obscure verse, not really obscure, but most people attribute the verbiage to the sun, because he appointed the sun and the moon and the stars for what? For signs and times, signs and seasons, right? I'm beginning to actually see, and I'm not 100% on board, I'm just thinking at this moment, and we'll see how it plays out, I suppose, but I do not believe that the movement of the sun through the gates actually is the seasonal change. Yes, it, It gives us the daylight portion of the change. All right, because that's all that Enoch specified was that, you gain a 2/10, and it's now 10 parts day, and 2 part whatever parts night, and blah 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 blah. Nowhere in there does Enoch say, and the temperature, and the temperature is 50 degrees and 60 degrees, and then you're at 0. You know what I mean? Of course, obviously, it's all dependent on where you are on the Earth. The further you are from the equator, up north or south, obviously, you have more extremes in your temperature. But at no point in time does Enoch even imply in any of the description for the sun that the sun is the one that brings the seasons themselves. So I'm thinking it's the moon and its change through the gates from 6 and 4 and 4 and 1, the Tropic of Cancer and the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn at that 177 days. Technically, it's 182 days in the calendar year, but it's 177 lunar night lengths, if that makes sense. That might possibly be making the change in our seasons. And a sneak peek at the 7th month. All right. Other calendars have issues with the 7th month. They kind of feel like, well, the only way that the Exodus occurred, and the only way that Shavuot and the Feast of Fruits can occur on full moons on the 15th is if every single month of the year the 15th was the Sabbath. No. The reason they fall, like they do fall, and they talk about the full moon and being the 15th, is because our Creator works in patterns, and He's the author of order. Month 1 and month 7 fall exactly the same format. That's the reason that biblically they talk about these 2 months, okay? And being the 15th and being a full moon and this specific holy day, Moedim, high holy day, whatever you want to call it, occur. Because the 1st month and the 7th month are the exact same pattern, the exact same layout. Day of Trumpets, all right? Remember how the calendar is. It's cyclical. The 31st runs right into the 1st. You don't have an overlapping, dark day of creation before the calendar. It all intertwines and is one. So obviously nobody has an issue with the Day of Trumpets being on the 1st, which is actually a Thursday, but it was the first Thursday's first day of creation. But they have other issues with, say, well, how in the heck does Yom Kippur work? Because they say, Yom Kippur is on the 10th. You're going to observe that day on the 10th, except in the verse right above it, it tells you something about, on the 9th day. Well, first of all, read the concordance version of it, because the definition for that actually says, if you look at all the definitions, then it says turn to the next even day, basically. So turn to the 10th day. All right. And secondly, it says that, the evening portion of the 9th. So yeah, on the 2nd day, on Friday, the 9th, once the sun is set, becomes the 10th. Until the sun sets, it's still the 9th. So at that portion of the day, on the 9th, you are getting ready for the sun to set for the 10th, which would then begin Yom Kippur. Does that make sense? Because the evening, the morning, or the 8th, okay? Somebody made the comment about, if you have 8, 9, 10, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. You remember, evening and then morning, cyclical pattern, 2 different portions of the day, not midnight to midnight, all right? 2 particular points in time that transpire. The evening of the 9th is still the evening of the 9th until the sun sets, and then it becomes the 10th. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And then other people are like, well, how can they walk around 7 days around Jericho? Because they'll be breaking the Sabbath. No. All right, so let's look at, the 7th, Wednesday, the 7th day. It's the sun sets. Now it's the 8th. So you got 8, the day of the 8th, the day of the 9th, the day of the 10th, the day of the 11th, the day of the 12th, the day of the 13th, and the day of the 14th. 7 days. You've got 7 days there before the sun sets, to make the official start of the Sabbath. So there's no issue with walking around Jericho for 7 days, because the sun had not set for the Sabbath to begin. I can say, the men are out doing their thing, walking around the building. Pretty sure not every single man is there, not every single woman is there, not every single child is there. So somebody's obviously still back at the house doing Shabbat preparations, so it's not like they went out, walked around, took a, picnic lunch or whatever, or just skipped over Sabbath. Because of the day portion and the night portion, you do have 7 days for them to walk around before the sun sets on Shabbat, to officially begin Shabbat for the 7th day of rest. Do you see what do you get what, I hope you get what I'm saying. And a sneak peek at the 8th month. Your 9th month, this is what it will look like. This is what it could look like. And your 10th month, all in an organized pattern. Your 11th month. Now remember, 10, 11, and 12 are your fourth quarter, what we call winter up here. It's the fourth quarter wherever you are in the world. It doesn't matter if you're in Alaska or if you're right at the equator. You have two extremes in, temperature and weather patterns. Don't get me wrong. However, it's still the fourth quarter. It's still considered winter no matter where you are, because it just is. And the 12th month, with the exception, obviously, if you go below the equator, then your seasons reverse. And why do they reverse? We covered that I covered that in part 3. It's because of the Taurus effect. All right. You have energy that goes through the vortex, out and wraps around and comes back up. Well, it's got to wrap around and come back up some way, shape, or form. It wraps around to the opposite direction, which is why you have opposite seasons. Why, when we have winter, Australia has summer. It's why when, your toilets flush the opposite direction. It's, part of all of that. Not to include that the moon is an orb, which is why they see the opposite and upside down picture of the moon and the stars as what we see. All right, now back to taking it way back. This slide got lost in the sauce too for some reason. Taking it way back. Like I said, every 218.4 years, we lost, or sorry, 214, over the last 218.4 years, we've lost 6 years. Well, guess what? If you take 1800.6, so the year roughly when, if you go 2019 minus 218.4, you get the year 1800.6, and then I was like, into the history of the calendar. Well, what happens if you take another 218.4 days from that? Oh my goodness, look at that. You get to the year 1582, the exact year that the Vatican screws over the Julian calendar and says, here's your new Gregorian calendar that's going to fix this, 1 day slide every 128 years. So, according to what we have, what I've figured out, I suppose, thanks to the Most High, is at least from the year 1852. So far, we've lost a total of 12 years. So, bye-bye 2019, bye-bye 2025, welcome to 2031. Oh, look at that. It ends in a 1. So after the 8th year, 8, 9, 10, 11, you got a 13th full moon. We have a 13th full moon this year. So yeah, we're roughly around 2031. But again, we will not find the path of years All right. We could still be, you know, a few years off of that because we don't know exactly how many days, this Julian calendar decided to scrap and get rid of. And then prior to that, we don't know how many, days the um, Egyptians had in every single one of their months, because you can look at one point in time, I think it was the Romans had an 8-day work week, an 8-day week, so I mean, it's just all screwed up. We don't exactly know where we are, but we're at least we're closest to 2031. Curious coincidence? I think not. I think it's all part of the Great Deception. All right. So it's the Great Deception in the Bible is not one specific deception. It's huge. It's spiderweb. It's a rabbit hole that you just keep tumbling down. It's not pinpointed, aliens, demons, the Great Deception. It's not just that. Everything we know just about is entwined in the Great Deception. Okay, and here's my the skipped over Jubilees slide from part 2. And command you the children of Israel that they observe the years according to the reckoning, 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its day or from its feasts, for everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feasts. But if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandments, then they will disturb all their seasons. Well, we just showed you we're at least 12 days out this year from the season, okay? And with every 13th new moon, yes, it happens to kind of bring it a little more into alignment, but in those missing years without the new moon, it slides back and back and back a little further, which is why you have the extra month, because the extra month, when we think it's April, technically it's March, but the extra month, given with the 13th new moon, manhandles and tries to pound in, an extra 30 days that you're not really seeing as it happens, to make the season seem like it's relatively in alignment. Because, hey, they know one thing, it's always going to come. The seasons are always going to come, type of thing. But as to them knowing when they are, no, they're not that accurate. All right, and their seasons, not disturb their seasons, and they will be dislodged from the order, and they will disturb the seasons, and the years will be dislodged, and they will neglect their ordinances. And all the children of Israel will forget and not find the path of years, and they will forget the new moons. It's not because you're not, you're forgetting the new moons, because how many people on the planet even look at a new moon? It's on the calendar. They don't think of it twice. They just run Monday through, like the current calendar has no tie whatsoever to anything in nature at all. If that makes sense. This just, people get up and go to work. They give a crap about a new moon. They give a crap about a full moon. They go about their business, and probably the vast majority don't even know that the original, meaning of a new moon meant new month. That's how they're going to forget the new moons. And the seasons, and the Sabbaths. Well, I just showed you we're not even on the right Sabbath day. We're practicing Sabbath on Saturday, when in fact we should be practicing it on a Wednesday. So with that, you're going to go wrong with everything and all the order of the year. For I know, and henceforth I declare unto you, and it is not on my own devising, for the Sefer lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets of the division of days as ordained, lest I forget the feasts of the covenant, and walk according to the feasts of the other nations after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon, and how it disturbs the seasons, and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them, when they will disturb the order, and make an abominable day the day of testimony. I'm not sure if that's specifically talking about the seventh day, because if you do a word search for the day of testimony, most references are to, the end days on the day of testimony. They'll make an unclean day a feast day. Well, if you're not putting, first of all, if you're not putting your Sabbaths in the correct day, you're having them Saturday. Saturday's an unclean day because it's not the seventh day. Or it could be the feast days when they're referring to counting the Omar for Shavuot, or it could be the feast days when you're discussing, unleavened bread or um, Sukkot and, fruits, whatever it may be. It can apply to every single one of them in some way, shape, or form. And they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy day, for they will go wrong as to the months and the Sabbaths and the feasts and the jubilees. And yes, we have done exactly that on every single one of them.